Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
For the third time in just 2 weeks, I have spent the better part of a day reviewing video footage involving allegations of excessive use by members of the Atlanta Police Department. Tragically, the most recent incident involved the fatal shooting of a 27-year-old man, Rayshard Brooks. Officers were called in response to Mr. Brooks falling asleep in his car while in the drive-through line at a local Wendy's.
So that right there is the mayor of Atlanta, Keisha Lance Bottoms, talking about Rayshard Brooks. And if you haven't seen what happened, falls asleep, cops show up, as you would do, right? Like, I mean, we hear about these all the time. Somebody falls asleep at the wheel and in line somewhere or at a light. Obviously, either they're really tired. Usually what ends up happening is there's some sort of alcohol involved. This is part of the video in the beginning of the altercation, and there was an altercation. This was not like what took place with George Floyd. This was not that. And we'll touch on that in a second. But so, they're sitting there talking to him, asking him, what's going on? Hey, you okay?
Where are you visiting?
My mother's grave site.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk to this officer here for a minute, and then we'll be good to go, okay?
You have his ID?
Yeah.
Put your hands behind your back for me. Here, put your hands behind your back.
Hey, stop fighting. Stop fighting. Stop fighting. You're going to get tased. You're going to get tased.
That's how that went. He was cooperating. They gave him a breathalyzer. They were going to arrest him, it looked like, and then it went kind of south from there. And then the fight broke out, and he was given more than he was getting, and he got an officer's taser away, and then away it went. I'm here to tell you what happened to him, right? What happened to him didn't need to happen. Sorry. Taser is not a deadly weapon. That did not need to happen. Too quick to pull out a gun and shoot. Just being honest. Didn't need to happen.
After a series of questions and administering a field sobriety test, officers attempted to arrest Mr. Brooks. He tussled with the officers and was able to take the taser from one of the arresting officers. As Mr. Brooks ran away, he turned over his shoulder and appears to fire the taser at one of the officers. The officer, in turn, shot Mr. Brooks with his service weapon.
It's already been ruled a homicide. Didn't need to happen. They burned down the Wendy's. There's no reason to burn down the Wendy's. There was no... this is just me. There is no reason to kill somebody over that. There wasn't. Well, what if it was a gun? It wasn't a gun. Everybody saw it. They were there. They got it. He got it away from them. He was running. At some point in time, you make a snap judgment saying, you know what? We'll pursue him. We'll get people out here. We know who he is. We've got his information. We've got his car. At some point in time, we know where this is going. And to shoot him, shot him twice. I'm sorry. Oh, Chad, you sound like some crazy... No, I'm just being honest. Right? That was you. You'd be like, oh, there's no reason to shoot him. There isn't. Sorry. Just, it didn't need to happen. He was running away. This is the stuff when they talk about police reform, the question's going to be asked, when is the time to pull your weapon? When is the time? When is the time to pull your weapon? Because when you do pull your weapon, it should be for keeps. But when is the time? Was this the time? There'll be a great investigation. Already the police chief resigned. You've already got one of the officers fired. I mean, this is going to be another situation. And there's 20 different camera angles because everybody in this day and age has a phone, which means they're a director, they're a producer, and they're a distributor. It's going to be a long summer. It's going to be a long, long summer. It is. I'm being 100% honest when I say it's going to be a long summer. You've got a situation where people are upset. They're protesting. They're angry. They're looking out. They're feeling like nobody is listening to them. On the other side of it, you got people at home who are frustrated, who are scared, trying to figure out what's going on because the coronavirus has not gone anywhere, and it doesn't look like it's going anywhere in the future. That's the crazy thing. It's still here. This is Dr. Michael Osterholm, infectious disease, University of Michigan, talking about this virus, what's going on, how many people are infected, and where we need to get.
Well, what we have to understand is that about 5% of the U.S. population has been infected to date with this virus, some locations slightly higher. This virus is not going to rest until it gets to about 60 or 70%. When I say rest, I mean just slow down. So one way or another, we're going to see a lot of additional cases out there. What the question we're asking ourselves right now, what does reopening do? What did the protests do? And I can give you examples where in some states like Arizona, the percentage of tests positive are going up substantially, suggesting it's not just a testing artifact, as you pointed out. Hospitalizations are going up. That surely is an indication. But it's not universally across the country.
Yeah, because some states, you get about what? Some states are pretty flat. It's about 10 of those. They're kind of flat. And you got about 22 going up, about 18 going down. Some of them you think would be going up aren't. Some of them you think would be going down aren't. It's not going anywhere. You couple all this together, you're going to have a long, long summer. We're going to have a very long summer. Very long. This is not going anywhere anytime soon. I think we need to start to realize this is what it's going to be. So when you have people at home who are frustrated and angry, they're sick and tired of politics as usual, they're watching things take place, plus, meaning protest, they've seen this stuff inundated in the news 24/7 on social media. And you've got the virus that was huge for about 3.5 months, but over the last 20 days or so has kind of gone to the second page. And now you've got another incident that took place in Atlanta. And the virus is still here. It's not going anywhere. We thought it would come in waves. Dr. Fauci said, hey, don't think that this is going away in the summer or fall or probably until the winter. This thing looks like it's here and it's not going anywhere.
And we're at one of those moments right now where we have to understand what is actually happening. How much is the virus driving itself? Remember, in previous influenza pandemics, we saw waves. These were 2 to 3 months of cases that then would suddenly just literally almost disappear, go into a trough, which had nothing to do with a man-made activity, only to come back with a vengeance in a second wave several months later. So we're really at an inflection point right now, understanding. Do we think reopening is going to increase cases? It sure should. But we have examples of states where it hasn't. So I think this is where, again, we have to be very humble and say this is a very serious challenge, but we don't really know what is actually making the virus move like it is right now in some states and not in others.
That is the mystery of all of this. What's making stuff move? What's not making stuff move? How's it going from point A to point B? Why is in some places there are issues that are growing tremendously in other places where you think, well, this is the perfect place for this thing to happen? It's not doing much. I couldn't tell you. What I do know is, at this moment in time, we're not quite sure what's going to happen. Michael Osterholm right there, University of Michigan infectious disease specialist, telling you we need at least 60 to 70% of the population, which I've been about the whole time. Is at some point in time we have to ask ourselves, is the herd immunity the only way we're going to slow this thing down? Because still haven't seen a therapeutic, and I thought we would have a therapeutic by now. And then the other side, we're still a ways away from any kind of vaccine. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. You can text the program as well. Love hearing from every single one of you. All right. Hope you're good on this Monday. Gabby, GABI.com/Benson. What is it? I'll tell you what it is. It's the way that's going to save you money by just going there and putting in your information for your homeowners and car insurance. You're going to get full comparisons, apples to apples comparisons on things like your homeowners and car insurance. Are you paying what you should be? for this coverage. So you get the exact same coverage, and they're just going to say, hey, this is what it is. For me, my car insurance was through the roof. So I saved about $1,000. My homeowner's insurance was spot on. Takes 2 minutes. Doesn't cost you a penny. It's free. They're never going to spam you. Robocalls, none of that stuff. All you have to do is link your accounts, and within 2 minutes, you will have your answer. It's incredible. It really, really is. Totally free. $825 a year. That's what the average Gabby customer saves. Do it for yourself. Check it out. See what you can save on car and homeowners insurance. Go to Gabby.com/Benson, GABI.com/Benson, Gabby.com/Benson. Chad Benson Show.
Don't let the Washington Beltway strangle you. This is where the exhausted majority comes to refuel, realign, and reevaluate. This is Chad Benson.
Realizing that he has a family, maybe this guy has a family, maybe we could call and reach out to a family member and see if we could get someone to come get him, because he's not hurting anybody, he's not putting anybody in harm's way. Let's get him home safe.
That's Tamika Miller. That is the now widow of Rashad Brooks, who was killed over the weekend in Atlanta. 2 police officers got into a scuffle with him. He was asleep at the wheel in a Wendy's drive-thru. They gave him sobriety check. He tried to run. There was a scuffle. He got one of the officers' tasers. As he was running, turned back to fire the taser. That is when an officer shot him twice in the back. He ended up dying. It's another situation. Got to ask the question. Did that need to happen? I think that's a very fair question to ask. At the same time, you're in a drive-thru at Wendy's. You're passed out. What's a cop to do? The shooting is one thing. I mean, this is the part where we have the conversation. I tweeted over the weekend. Take a deep breath. Let's relax this weekend. Let's come back and let's start having a real intelligent conversations. And some people are like, I don't want to have a conversation. There's no conversations to be had. And I'm just like, okay, well, that's the way you're going to do it. I mean, it's this is what we need to talk about with the policing. We've got technology. Let's modernize the police force even more. It's not about defunding. It's about reallocating. To think that you're going to have zero police is insane. It's just not going to happen. To think that you're going to have no police and we're just going to let it go and just say, all right. One of the things that they want is in a lot of these places, and we're going to talk about the Chaz coming up in a bit, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, is they want zero police officers, but a community like Neighborhood Watch. How does that work? I mean, what exactly is that about? How do you go about doing that? So you're going to have some sort of neighborhood watch doing what? What happens if crime is there? What happens if things happen? What happens if things get out of control? Seattle hasn't had a lot of murders, never really did. It's only 64 in the last couple of years. But their property crime and assaults and things of that nature are through the roof. Obviously, less policing, because Seattle has been in the forefront of changing their policing, is not working. We need to be modern. We need to look at situations and say, is this worth it for what the outcome may be? Is this worth it for the outcome? Because we have all the technology to trace and to look for people. Picking him up today would have been just as easy as trying to arrest him the other night when he ran away. And you could have just said, you know what? We'll give chase. We'll call some backup. We'll see if we can find him. If not, we have his car. We have his ID. I'm pretty sure we're going to find him. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show, Twitter. Tweet at me, text the program as well. All that being said, craziness going on, COVID-19 continuing to spread. Doesn't look like we're going to have a season. It looks like it's going to be endemic, which means it's going to be here. We're having to learn to live with it. And the question is, July's fast approaching. That $600 federal money, what's going to happen to it?
I think people want to go back to work, and I think they welcome the reopening of the economy, and I think they're anxious to get out and about. We are not going to remove unemployment benefits. That will still continue, and there will be some return to work benefit. It won't be quite as substantial. This is a turning point in the economy. Besides the great jobs numbers, you've had a lot of positive green shoot indicators, and we don't want to interrupt that.
Kudlow, look, it's ugly. Let's not pretend. You could talk about all these indicators. The fact is, it's not as great as you think. And now with the rise, you don't know what states are going to do. At the end of the day, states are going to have the opportunity to decide whether or not they should go backwards or continue to go forward based on their hospital capacity, based on all of the other things that we've seen throughout this entire coronavirus epidemic. And yes, in many ways, you've incentivized people to stay home by making sure they're getting an extra $600 a week on top of their unemployment benefits from the state. People are scared because those are going to go away. And is there another stimulus? Is there more? Are they going to cut it in half? That's a fair question.
You're going to get big retail sales numbers reported next week on Tuesday. Already department and merchandise sales week to week are above year-ago levels. You've got an Apple mobility index that's practically pre-pandemic, showing that people are traveling. You've got new business applications are skyrocketing. And by the way, small businesses are now about 80% reopening. So this is all positive news coming off the pandemic. We are in the recovery stage.
But that recovery can end quickly, especially if states start to reclose down. And that is a possibility. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at me, text the program as well. This should be interesting. It's called the Chaz. Oh, my goodness me. What is going on in Seattle? We'll talk about it straight ahead. Chad Benson Show.
Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
The spread of COVID-19 showing no signs of slowing across nearly half the country. Over the weekend, 22 states reporting alarming increases in their daily number of new cases. Florida experiencing a steady climb for nearly 2 weeks, with the last 2 days topping 2,000 new cases each, seeing as high as a 35% rise between Friday and Saturday. Florida's governor explaining the rise is due to increased testing in nursing homes, agricultural communities, and prisons.
We can't just describe this to increased testing. This is a real increase in case number.
Yeah, you're going to see that. Lots of increases nationwide. Some of that is because of testing, but I tell everybody, look at the percentage as far as hospitals go. Most hospitals need to operate around 80% capacity to essentially keep their doors open, right? Because we think that hospitals, they just have money everywhere and that there's nothing to it. So if nobody's there, that's a great thing. Well, the hospital will start laying people off. At the beginning of this, they canceled all of the surgeries. Well, a good portion of the monies that the hospital bring in are from surgeries. So when they did that, they were laying people off because they thought there was going to be, 80, 90% capacity for COVID patients, and it just wasn't there. So now what you're seeing is you're starting to see an uptick in patients inside of hospitals because of COVID-19. And you're hearing, oh, my God, they're at 85% capacity. Well, they need about 75 to 80% in a lot of cases for them to be in a situation where they're bringing money in and the doors can stay open. So you look at hospital beds as a percentage of COVID patients versus others. So if it's 85% full, but only 5 or 10% are COVID patients, then you don't have to freak out about that. Then you look at the percentage of people who test positive. If you test 1,000 one day, and out of that 1,000, 12%, meaning 120, are positive, you're at 12%. You test the next day, and you test 10,000, and out of that, though, 600 are positive, but you're only at 6%. Well, that means you're going down. So there's a lot of ways to look at this, but here's the reality of it. This is not going anywhere. It's here, so we got to figure out how we live around it, what we do as we move forward to protect ourselves and to protect those that are most vulnerable. That's the best way of dealing with this. I think we're starting to realize that living with it, living around it, is about the best way we're going to do, because we cannot stay indoors. We cannot hide from it, especially now when you've got Fauci and people coming out and saying, well, this thing could be around for God knows how long. Well, could you imagine if we had to stay completely sheltered in place outside of a few people, and the rest of us either had to work from home as best as possible or were on unemployment? You're talking about an absolute collapse in the economy that would be, in many cases, far worse, and the lasting effect is insane. So it's about walking that fine line and finding that balance between, hey, everybody under the age of 65 who's in good health, there's risk. The chances are, if you catch this, 99% of you are going to survive, and about 85% of you, give or take, will have very little, if any, symptoms whatsoever. But there's risk. Everybody else, people with compromised immune systems, the elderly, nursing homes, assisted living facilities, things of that nature, we just have to hunker down and build some sort of wall around them and go from there. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. You can text the program as well. It's called the Chaz. The Chaz. What is it? Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. And quite frankly, it is not everything it's cracked up to be. This is a guy named Brandon, lives just outside the zone, talking about the area in Seattle of the 6 or so blocks that have been taken over by God knows who and what. I mean, every day it's somebody new. It seems like that's leading this.
I'm scared. I've been scared every day. And I haven't gotten a lot of sleep because for the first time in my life in Capitol Hill, I hear gunshots every single night, and I've heard people screaming every single night outside. They're not protest screams. I've heard protest screams, but I've also heard screams of terror out there. And it's just, that's rattling enough, just hearing the screams for the first time and not knowing what's going on.
Yeah, it's crazy. And who's in charge is another thing, because nobody really knows. This is Seattle's police chief, Carmen Best, of which she's not the best, talking about who's leading the charge there.
There are a lot of differing objectives and agendas and people who have congregated into the area. One of our real challenges there is trying to determine who is a leader or an influencer that seems to change daily. I know that many of our city officials and others are trying to establish some sort of communication with someone who can give us some direction about what the intent is and how we might move forward.
Yeah. And they've got all kinds of demands. They want people to hand out money. They want a police-free zone for good. They don't want the police anywhere involved. I mean, it's the usual, hey, we want all of these things. And they've taken over. This is a major American. Seattle is not a small city. We're not talking about a tiny little area. They've taken, depending on who you talk to, 6 to 12 blocks of an area where they have cordoned everything off and they're just living their lives. And it's lunacy. Jenny Durkin, who is their useless mayor last week, said it's kind of like a block party. I don't know about you. I've been to a few block parties. At no time did me and my friends say to ourselves, hey, let's take over the block. We'll have a bunch of demands and we'll never leave. At no time did that happen. It's not a farmer's market. It's not Burning Man. You've allowed protesters to chase your police from their headquarters and take over several blocks of your city in a major city in America. And your whole thing is, well, we're just going to just enjoy it. And by the way, it's not all peace and love. More from Brandon, a guy who lives just outside there.
The chance I've heard them myself saying kill the police, I've heard them say F the police, defund the police, cops are pigs, just violent chants. And so they're coming up on the cops and then they shine like lasers in the strobe lights. To give the police credit, they did not budge their own line. They did not move forward. They did not move back. They just stayed still. And he's telling them over and over again, please stop. You're shining lasers. You're shining strobes. All of a sudden, someone chucks a glass bottle. It does not hit a police officer. It hit a guardsman in the back in the head. And it's like, at what point do you realize these people are not there to peacefully protest?
No. They're there to break stuff, to scream and yell. And it is nuts. It's not all that. I've talked to two reporters up there. One from ABC, and the other from Cairo, who say, look, this is, in the daytime, it's kind of like, people are hanging out and they're making a garden and it's kind of like this feel, but at night, it totally changes. Well, this is what it is. It's time for you to do something. It's time for you to stand up, Police Chief Best.
I wish I had the answer to how long it might last. I can tell you that we want to move it forward as quickly and efficiently as possible. But my concern as a police chief, we don't want anyone there to be harmed. We don't want this to be something that devolves into a forced situation.
Okay, so are you just going to just let it play out? What if it takes months? What if it takes years? What if you just decide you're just going to cede it to them and allow that to happen? What do you think happens at that point? Because at that point, if I'm somebody who looks at this, I say, damn, we can go do all that stuff? That sounds like fun. Let's go take something from them. They're giving it away. Giving it away. And how about the governor?
I called Governor Inslee. The staffer in Governor Inslee's office, he gave me a customer service voice, and he said he would refer me to previous remarks the governor has made. And I said, can I talk to you human to human? What if this was your house and your police station you're looking at? And I'll never forget what he said to me. He said, sir, I don't want to make this personal. And I said, this is personal because this is my home and I don't have cops anymore. And I have people throwing grenades in front of me. And you're telling me to just Google something the governor said a few days ago.
How's that working? Brandon lives just outside the autonomous zone. Not happy. Is what it is. Welcome to the world of we're going to let them run around. These young kids, that's mostly what it is. Pissed off Antifa, hippies, counter culture, the new style. And even Black Lives Matter came out over the weekend and said, look, we're not buying into a lot of this stuff. We think it's chance for people there in Seattle to do their own thing and to use the situation to further their agenda. And if you go and look at what they want, right? If you go and look at what they want, their whole thing is they want a lot of different stuff that has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter and what took place. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. You can text the program as well. Love hearing from you. So I watched some golf this weekend. Love it. Still looking around and saying to myself, are we going to get any other sports? Looks like Major League Soccer is going to come back. La Liga came back over the weekend, which is the Italian League came back over the weekend. So you've got the Italian League, you've got the Spanish League, the Bundesliga, which is in Germany. You also have the Premier League coming back this week, but the NBA, Major League Baseball, all of those are sitting around, and NBA is very interesting because they've kind of come up with a plan that looks pretty concrete. They seem to have some people on board, but not everybody. And now they're talking about, well, hold on a second. Some players are like, yeah, I'm not going to show up. So you do your thing. You're like, oh, and then Major League Baseball. Well, goodness me. They're just a joke.
Where this is going to wind up, Hannah, whether it is the players doing it, whether it is the league doing it, in all likelihood, both of them doing it, is in a grievance room where an arbitrator is going to decide what exactly this document says and who exactly was at fault.
Yeah. They don't seem to want to get it going. Eventually, the commissioner is going to force them to play, and it could be as short as 48 games. Baseball had their opportunity, and for lack of a better term, they blanked it away. That's the reality. They had a chance to be the sport, came back, could have been July 4th. We're talking 2 weeks, baseball could start up. They could be doing their thing, and they could have potentially the entire summer all to themselves in a way that they're not sharing it with the NBA Finals or the NHL. Who knows what's going to happen with football, college football, all those. This could have been their time, and they're still haggling and fighting over money. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Shows your Twitter. Tweet at me. Text the program. Rough Greens. So my dog Doodle, I talk about Doodle a lot. Love him. Crazy little dog. Last night, doing some video editing, and I see him. He's playing with the puppy and bouncing around. And Doodle, my dog, has really bad hip issues. But we started giving him Rough Greens about 2-3 months ago, sprinkle it on his food, and everything started to change about 7 to 10 days in. Within 2 weeks, he was a bouncy, different dog. It works. If your dog, I don't care what your dog has, what ails your dog, give him Rough Greens. Sprinkle it on top of his or her food and watch the difference in about 2 weeks' time. It's got 25 all-natural vitamins and minerals, 20 digestive enzymes, probiotics, omegas, oils 3, 6, and 9. It's got antioxidants. That food that you feed your dog, that everybody does, for all intents and purposes, nothing's living in there. It's meant to live on a shelf. This brings the food alive and changes everything. It is the thing your dog's been missing. Rough Greens can reduce or completely eliminate your dog's symptoms. A 2-week jumpstart is $14.95. That's it, $14.95 for a 2-week jumpstart. Go to roughgreens.com/Chad or call 833-MyDog88. That's ruffgreens.com/Chad or call 833-MyDog88. Rough Greens, we make any pet food better. Chad Benson Show.
No fake outrage here, just the real thing. The Chad Benson Show. 'Cause baby, now we got that.
Taylor Swift has added her voice to those calling for statues that she says, quote, celebrate racist historical figures to be taken down. One such monument the Tennessee resident singles out in her social media post is a Nashville area statue of Confederate General Nathan Bedford Forrest, the first Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. Swift calls on state officials to remove that statue and others, saying in part, you can't change history, but you can change this.
No, and you can't change history. And that feels like you're trying to change a little bit of history. You don't get rid of it. You erect statues and monuments around it that talk about the other side, talk about the struggles, talks about slavery, talk about what went down. Who were the heroes on the other side? You paint a different picture. You tell the entire story. We've got to stop saying, well, let's do this or let's do that. No. Let's start thinking about it in a very real way. I mean, it's not that hard. Put up better monuments. Put up better. I mean, they pulled last week or the week before last Gone with the Wind and on HBO Max. They're going to bring it back with historical connotation. They're going to have people introducing the movie, I think both at the beginning and the end, Black Studies professors who are going to talk about what went down. Hattie McDaniel, who won the Academy Award, was the first black actor or actress to do so. In doing so, she couldn't go to the Academy Awards. She had to wait outside till they called her name. She came in, she got the award, and then she had to leave. But don't tear it down. Add stuff that's better, bigger, and tells the true story of what took place. Because I think what we're trying to do is we're tearing things down and said, look at what we did. You didn't change anything, and you didn't enlighten or educate anybody, which to me is more important than tearing down. To me, that is what we should be doing. Educating, talking about it, having a conversation, erecting other monuments and statues next to it to tell a different story, to talk about who these people were. Who was this person, that person, this general? Who was Frederick Douglass? Right? What was he about? Born a slave, and then went from there to change so much of this world. Why? I think more people will be interested in that. But at the end of the day, a lot of people see tearing it down as a much easier solution. When I say no, tell the other side. Let's be smart about it. Let's educate. Let's enlighten. Let's not whitewash. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Happy Monday. Hope you're doing well. It's beautiful. Short week for me. 3 days. Loving it. Take a few days off. Father's Day weekend. Going to pick up my little dude, Jack. We're going to hang out and do stuff. You text the program. Check out the Instagram as well. This is the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Police say he resisted arrest, which turned into a struggle, leading to him grabbing an officer's taser. Brooks flees and appears to point the stun gun at the officers while he runs away. Investigators say Officer Garrett Rolfe then fired 3 shots at Brooks, who died at the hospital after surgery. An autopsy reveals Brooks was shot twice in the back and lists the manner of death as homicide.
Rashad Brooks, father of 4, was going to be arrested. At least that's what the video showed, that he was inebriated. Somebody called the police. He was at a Wendy's drive-thru. He passed out. Cops came, did the sobriety test. They were going to take him into custody, and then a scuffle ensued.
Where are you visiting?
My mother's grave site.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna talk to this officer here for a minute, and then we'll be good to go. Okay? You have his ID? Yeah. Put your hands behind your back for me. Yeah, put your hands behind your back.
Hey, stop fighting! Stop fighting! Stop fighting! You're gonna get tased! You're gonna get tased!
And away it went. Scuffle, 2 officers. He was giving more than he was getting. Rashad Brooks managed to get the stun gun away, and boom, takes off running. Now what? Well, on the heels of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, now this. Let's not forget that Ahmaud Arbery, also in Atlanta. There's a lot of stuff that's going on. People are angry, they're pissed, they're upset. They want to see some change. They're asking the question, did it need to happen?
As a council member, running away from the police officer, he don't have a gun. Is there any reason for them to shoot him? No. No. So, my position is that they got to go.
That's a council member, Joy Shepard, running away from the police. Was there a reason to shoot him? You had his ID. You knew who he was. You had his car. He was taken off. It's a fair question to ask. You'd already patted him down by the sounds of it. Was there a reason to shoot him? And this is part of the de-escalation side of things that people are going to be asking the question. You know, we've seen that in car chases. Police will back off Like in many states, they don't chase motorcycles, especially if motorcycles are one of those crotch rockets, as they call them. Well, they take off. They're just like, you know what? We know who it is. We've got everything. We're going to have to, unless it's a dangerous threat. I think it's a fair thing. Now, he did fight. This wasn't one of those things where he didn't do anything. There was an absolute scuffle. He did take off. You can't be doing that. But was there a need for this? That's what people are going to be asking. Now, what do we have? We have more people that are pissed and angry. After seeing this everywhere, they're trying to figure out what is going to happen. Is this going to be homicide? Is it going to be charged? That's what they've ruled it as, a homicide. But will there be charges?
The district attorney says his office is attempting to speak to 2 more witnesses. He also says his staff is having difficulty getting all of the body and dash cam footage from the Atlanta Police Department.
Chief resigned, officer's been fired, and now people wait. Marching today in Atlanta. People are pissed, people are angry. I think it's a fair question to ask, right? Like, is that a fair question to ask? At what point in time do you say, all right, this person was drunk, this person doesn't seem to be a threat outside of the fact that he shouldn't have been driving his car? I think we can all agree on that, right? Red and yellow, black, white, green, orange, purple. If you're inebriated and the law says this, and you're above that, that is something that is a crime, period. Does it deserve death? Hell no. But these are the questions that will be asked this week. And there is a lot of video, not just their dash cam, not just their body cameras, but several people who were at the Wendy's, which, by the way, has been burned down, because I don't know what Wendy's did to be burned down, but it is. And we'll see what takes place. Do I think there's a good chance they're going to be charged? I think one of them may be charged with homicide. We shall see. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Feel free to tweet at me. That being said, with all of the protests, with everything going on outside, and there'll be more protests, I'm sure, in the coming days, you also have something else that has not gone anywhere. We call that the coronavirus.
This morning, New Jersey becomes the latest state to enter phase 2 of reopening. But across the country, coronavirus cases are on the rise. At least 22 states and Puerto Rico have an increase in new reported cases. That includes Arizona. There have been 1,200 new cases since Saturday. Florida reported 2,000 cases in 24 hours for the second day in a row. New York State is seeing its lowest number of hospitalizations and deaths since the pandemic began. But the governor says there have been 25,000 complaints filed against businesses violating social distancing and mask rules. Alex Perche, ABC News, Washington.
Yeah. Now what? Well, it's not going anywhere. I think that's something that we need to realize. It's not going anywhere. So with the rise of this, it's the how do we live around it? First and foremost, if you want to be treated like an adult, you're going to have to act like an adult. This thing's not going anywhere. You need to do the best you can to limit your contact with other people. Wear your mask when asked to wear a mask. And social distance as best as possible. That's it. It shouldn't be that hard. It is, though. Surprisingly, it is that hard. It's very much that hard. Because people can't seem to do it. People want to go out. I understand that. It's a right to go out. People are protesting. They're doing stuff. Why shouldn't we be allowed? I get that. My thing is, I'm looking at a other side of a picture, which is states are going to start to look and ask serious questions about, are we opening too fast? Do we need to pull back the reins? Our economy, no matter what Larry Kudlow says, is still struggling, as is the rest of the globe's economy. We face a summer of unrest and potential more and more protest. And you're looking at a situation where this thing now, as Dr. Fauci has said, we thought it was going to be seasonal. That's what we were being told by the WHO, the CDC. It looks like it could be seasonal. Now it doesn't look like it's going to be seasonal. It looks like it's going to be endemic, which means it'll be here. So we better learn to live around it. That's something we have to discuss. How do we live around this thing? Because we haven't got to that point of herd immunity.
Well, What we have to understand is that about 5% of the U.S. population has been infected to date with this virus, some locations slightly higher. This virus is not going to rest until it gets to about 60 or 70%. When I say rest, I mean just slow down. So one way or another, we're going to see a lot of additional cases out there. What the question we're asking ourselves right now, what does reopening do? What did the protests do? And I can give you examples where in some states like Arizona, the percentage of tests positive are going up substantially, suggesting it's not just a testing artifact, as you pointed out. Hospitalizations are going up. That surely is an indication. But it's not universally across the country.
No. Some states are faring a little bit better. Why? Well, because they've already had a large amount of people infected, which will slow this thing down. He's talking about 60% of the population being infected, that's that herd immunity. What that ends up doing is as there are more and more people that have been infected, the antibodies are everywhere. It's harder to transfer to people and it eventually slowly but surely dies out. Is that where we're headed? I don't know. But it's not gone anywhere. And then on top of that, you've got the economy side of things, and the unemployment benefits are close to running out. So where do we go from there? Because a lot of people out there, people I know who are enjoying the staying at home, getting their $600 extra federal dollars a week, on top of the fact they got a stimulus and they're getting unemployment. And they're sitting around thinking to themselves, well, right now, but it's going to run out.
Larry Kudlow, the president's economic advisor, said those $600 weekly unemployment payments will not be renewed. He believes they are incentivizing Americans not to look for work. He says the coronavirus in the U.S. is contained and that the economy has reached a turning point.
I don't know if that's true, but what I do know is it's slow, and that dimmer switch is having some issues. And if you've got people that are afraid to go out and spend money because they're worried about their job, or you've got people that are afraid to go out, period, because they're worried about the coronavirus, that is not going to boost the economy. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show, Twitter. Free to tweet at me, text the program as well. Car Shield. What's the best thing you can do for your car? Get yourself a little Car Shield. You know how expensive some of those things are. Now, here's the thing about Car Shield. You call them up. They got plans starting as low as $99 a month. Very flexible. You can customize your needs. And I tell people to do that because it's not a blanket thing. Maybe your car's a little bit newer and you're worried more about the electronics than the engine. Get yourself Car Shield. Maybe you're worried about the engine and the transmission. Get yourself Car Shield. They will customize a plan that fits the things that you're worried about most when it comes to your car. You get 24/7 roadside assistance, a rental car for free while your car's in the shop. That shop is the shop that you choose. They get them paid directly. You pay a small deductible. It's that simple. Again, rates start as low as $99 a month. You can protect yourself from surprises, save thousands in cover repairs. Call 800-CAR-6000, mention code Benson, saves you 10%, or visit carshield.com, carshield.com, code Benson saves you 10%, or call 800-CAR-6000, use that code Benson, save yourself 10%. A deductible may apply. Chad Benson Show.
You go, boy.
This isn't about right or left. This is just about right and wrong.
Right you are, Chad. The Chad Benson Show.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition, liftoff.
Now it's time to find out what's trending. What's trending? Yeah, what does that mean? I mean something, right? Like it's trending on the old internet. What's trending? Let's take a peek around the old world of the interwebs and find out what's going on, what people are talking about. Hank Williams Jr., his daughter, was killed in a car accident yesterday. Trending. Sad but true. Lori Vallow, the human remains found in Idaho identify as Lori Vallow's children. Tragic story, bizarre story. That if there wasn't coronavirus, George Floyd and everything, I have no doubt, outside of the battle between Trump and Biden, that would be the story. It's just one of those things where it's just so bizarre. Remember, her husband was killed by her brother. Her brother subsequently died a month later. Chad Daybell's wife dies within about a month. He's remarried to her. They're both doomsday super conspiracy theorists. They're in Hawaii. Can't find her 17-year-old and her 6-year-old. It just was so bizarre. And last week on his property, they found the body. It's official now. I have a feeling they're going to be in jail for a long time. Mary Trump, you don't know who she is? The niece of Donald Trump is going to be publishing a book coming out. And she said she leaked tax documents to help the New York Times investigate the president's finances. This will be interesting. She's 55. She's the daughter of Fred Trump Jr., the president's older brother, who died in 1981. Her book, Too Much and Never Enough, is scheduled to arrive August 11th. We'll see what's in there that could be potentially crazy. He'll come out and say, don't really know her. I wasn't close with my brother Fred. You know how he does, right? Don't know her, never saw her before, don't know her. I don't even know how she got the name. She's a shame. Head on over to the magical world of Twitter, SCOTUS. Lots of stuff coming down today. When it comes to all kinds of stuff, as far as rulings, one with the liability of police, right? So, liability of police, should they be liable civilly? Should they be sued? Will actual individual officers? That would be tough. Could you imagine being a police officer? Because think about how many lawsuits you would have on a daily basis. That could be insane. Top of that, SCOTUS has ruled in a 6-3 decision when it comes to LGBTQ protection that it rules that discriminating against LGBTQ employees violates anti-discrimination laws. And in a major victory for California, Supreme Court rejects Trump's challenge when it comes to sanctuary cities and the sanctuary law. I have an issue with the sanctuary law. That's just me. I would like to make, and part of it is because, like everything else, we never really want to fix anything. We just allow it to just fester. And the sanctuary side of immigration is always one of those that just hang out because nobody's ever interested. Just like when it comes to race or when it comes to so many things, we're not interested in finding a solution. And you have to look at why we don't want to find solutions, because all too often, people who are involved in these things, especially the loudest, there's too much in it for them to want to make it go away. Right? So if both sides are happy fighting over it, they can raise money, they can argue, it's great for their bases, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yet at the end of the day, it doesn't help at all. They're being used as pawns in a game, economically. And I find it ridiculous. And I'm sorry, sanctuary cities are ridiculous. At the same time, also looking at what is going on when it comes to immigration and the fact that it was this time last year, it's all anybody's talk, kids in cages, the whole 9 yards. Here we are a year later, and nothing was ever done. And we'll talk about it again when something happens, but nothing will ever get done. And that's the thing. Find out who is really pushing these things and how they're pushing it and how they're raising money on it, but how they actually don't try to solve it. They just want to promote it. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show. It's your Twitter, your Instagram, all of the other goodies that go along with what it is we do here. Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
In reality, as much as 60% of the new cases can be attributed to asymptomatic spreaders. And if things don't turn around, the state could soon see more than 10,000 new cases every day.
If we continue at the rate that we're moving right now and don't really do much else, we'll probably see around 12 to 13,000 cases in the first week in July.
Nearly every beach in the Sunshine State has officially reopened. Some experts hope the virus would struggle in the summer heat, but as the temperature has risen in some areas, so have the numbers.
Yeah. Coronavirus not going there. Producer Phil, if I could just borrow you for a second. You went to the beach this weekend, right?
I did.
That's correct. Yes. Now we'll talk about something else, but how was it a zoo? Were people socially distancing? What was it like?
Actually, it was the first weekend where restaurants could actually offer sit-down service. So a lot of the indoor places were closed, but the ones that had outdoor seating on the boardwalk, they only had 50% capacity, and they only had every other table. But it wasn't really a zoo. It wasn't as crowded as I thought it would be.
How was the weather?
The weather was gorgeous.
See, that's why I think a lot of people working. Now, how are the furries? For those of you guys who don't know what a furry is, Phil sends me and Anthony a picture the other day. So we're sitting there. He's like, hey, Chad, I'm on the beach. Look, furries. Now, if you don't know what furries are, these are people who dress up like animals. And I'm like, why is Phil hanging out with a werewolf? Were the furries, were they excited? Did they socially distance?
They were not socially. Well, they social distance from us, but not from each other.
Yeah, furries. That's good times right there. So you've got Florida, you got South Carolina, you've got a lot of places across the country that are seeing upticks, and out here in the West,
at least 22 states and Puerto Rico have an increase in new reported cases. That includes Arizona. There have been 1,200 new cases since Saturday. Now, some Phoenix bars and restaurants are closing down for a second time. In Utah, COVID-19 is disproportionately affecting the Latino community. They're 14% of the population, but make up 42% of the cases.
Yes, it is getting ugly again, and the questions are starting to be asked. Did we open too soon? Well, it's hard to say whether or not we opened too soon. And I'll tell you why. Because nobody knows exactly what we're dealing with. That is the quadrillion-dollar question. We thought it was going to be this, and we thought it was going to be that. We thought that the summer weather was going to help, kill this thing. And I think if you're outside a majority of the time, it's okay. But we're getting together again in large groups and numbers and doing things. I couldn't tell you. See, I don't live, for me, my life is pretty regimented. Go home, relax, hang with the family, play with the lizards, come home, come to work, do the same thing over. I see about the same 8 to 10 people. Even when things are not coronavirus, it doesn't vary too dissimilar outside to going to see Jack and maybe us going to a SeaWorld once a month or a few movies. Outside of that, none of that has really changed. That's kind of always been my thing. But I've noticed now more and more people are out doing things, and this thing isn't going anywhere anytime soon. We thought maybe it would. Dr. Fauci is now saying, winter, fall and winter, you can kind of kiss it goodbye. It's over. It's done with. And now the question is, where do we go from here? Because a second shutdown, which I don't think we're going to have. Some states may slow things down, pull things back, but I don't think we can afford financially, economically, a second shutdown without just seeing this thing. That's it. I mean, you're going to find a ton of small and medium, even some large businesses saying, all right, I'm out. When this is over and done with, we'll think about coming back. Some will never come back. They're already talking about 20% of businesses, small businesses across the country will never reopen. Could you imagine a second one and what that could potentially do? 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us, text the program as well. Over the weekend, another shooting of an African-American man, this time in Atlanta. They've already had the Ahmaud Arbery shooting, which took place earlier in the year. Then you had George Floyd, and the world watched and has continued to protest. And over the weekend, another incident and killing of an African-American at the hands of the police officer. A little bit different. There was a scuffle. There was a fight. This was not one of those things where, originally when I saw the headlines, I'm like, so they just came up behind somebody in a drive-thru and shot him in the back. But it wasn't like that. But the questions are being asked, did it even have to happen? Or was this once again an overreaction? Here's the mayor, Atlanta's mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms, talking about Rayshard Brooks.
After a series of questions and administering a field sobriety test, officers attempted to arrest Mr. Brooks. He tussled with the officers and was able to take the taser from one of the arresting officers. As Mr. Brooks ran away, he turned over his shoulder and appears to fire the taser at one of the officers. The officer, in turn, shot Mr. Brooks with his service weapon.
Yeah, shot at him 3 times. I thought only 2 hit, but you're getting conflicting reports. They've ruled it a homicide. And now will they or won't they be charged? That's the question that people are asking. Could it have been done differently? Could they have de-escalated this? Could they have said, hey, we've got his information. He's already failed his field sobriety test. We've got it on camera. He's not a threat. Let's chase him and see. Let's get some other police officers around. If not, we've got his car. We've got his ID. I'm pretty sure we can pick him up. Other officer says, no, you can't do that. But this is the question that we need to be having when it comes to policing and what people are looking for. Did it need to happen?
The case law in Georgia, a taser's not a deadly weapon. So they can't say it's not like he was running off with a gun. It's not a deadly weapon. I lose cases against officers who use it on my clients because it's not a deadly weapon. And I'm saying that, they shouldn't have done it. But you just can't have it both ways in this. If it's not a deadly weapon, his life was not in immediate harm when he fired that shot. Just was not.
That's Rayshard Brooks' attorney talking about the fact that when he argues that police officers shouldn't use it because it's a deadly weapon, they tell him in the court, no, it's not. So if that's true, then it should also be true for the fact that if he shoots it at the police officer, it's not a deadly weapon. So him being shot twice in the back should never have happened. I don't know where this is the question that we needed to be asking ourselves. Are there some things where, we live to fight another day, we get him tomorrow. We get her tomorrow. If there are people that are genuinely a threat to society, to others and themselves, do we chase them and get them? Absolutely. But if the question is, this person here was drunk, don't think they found anything in the car. They were going to, he was passed out in a Wendy's drive-thru. I don't think that, he was going to be a threat to society. I don't know what they thought. There was a tussle. I've seen, there's several footages that are available out there, and the tussle was real. He was giving more than he was getting. He was taking them on and seemed to be doing a good job, enough that he was able to get in a few blows and get away the taser and then run. Did he deserve to be shot? Hell no. But do we start asking the questions? Is this worth it? What are we asking police to do? Today, the Supreme Court rejected because people want the police to be held liable as individuals when it comes to things like this, and get rid of qualified immunity, which essentially gives the police a, under their job title, they're allowed a certain amount of immunity to what takes place, because otherwise, what are you going to have? Everybody will sue the cops for everything, and you're basically going to just bankrupt people, and you'll have no cops, which for some people, that's what they want. For others, I think they want a balance, more modernized way to deal with things, trying de-escalation. But This is what's going to happen. You're going to see more and more marches coming. Black Lives Matter is not just something that's happening here. Globally, it's having an effect.
Black Lives Matter still reverberating around the world. Massive protests in Japan, New Zealand, South Korea, and multiple cities in France, where protesters are angry at their own police, who only days ago were cleared by a French court in the 2016 death of a black man in their custody. Like George Floyd, Adama Traore died after being restrained under the weight of 3 officers. This weekend, France's Interior Minister ruled against the further use of chokeholds by police.
And that's the big question. Should chokeholds be allowed? When I've talked to officers, all of them have said the same thing. Chokeholds are the last resort. The next resort is pulling your weapon. That's the last thing. We've exhausted everything. Should we get rid of them? Again, more questions that are being asked on a daily basis. Let's have the conversation. Not shy away from it. There are a ton of great police out there. There's a lot of average police officers, and there's some bad ones. Let's get rid of the bad ones. Let's modernize police so we can protect them and protect what the public sees as a militarization and a shoot-first police force, which we know that's not true. I think it'd be better for all of us. But for a lot of people, that conversation is tough to have. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show. Your Twitter, feel free to tweet at me. You can text the program. Trump said over the weekend, there's kneeling in football. He will not watch it. Somebody asked me, will you watch it? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to watch it. I like football. Well, yeah, but he kneels. What if people kneel? What if they kneel? In America, it's not about the flag. It's not about our military. Somebody was making a statement. Beauty of America is the people that died to protect our country were protecting our values, and that is one of the values we have. I understand that the business aspect of it has come into play, where they've said, look, this is the business, it's hurting us, which will eventually hurt you, but it's going to happen. I mean, if and when there's football or sports, I don't know when that's going to happen, but there's a possibility that we're going to play something sooner rather than later. The United States Soccer Federation moved their ruling. They had put out a blanket kind of edict several months ago saying there will not be any kneeling, and they've now repealed that, so players are allowed to do it. Will you watch it? Of course I'll watch it. Of course I'll watch it. Now, if they stop after every time they make a play or score a touchdown, take their helmet off or whatever, and they make some sort of political statement, and that's all that we have, then that'll be a different thing. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at me. Text the program as well. Wounded Paw, amazing organization. Working with them for a while, and just the amazing work that they do is just incredible. They go out and rescue dogs and take them from shelter to service dogs for veterans, first responders, and their family. One of the things they've got right now is they've got a dog that's about ready to go out to a child of a first responder who has autism. And that dog used to be a dog that was a bait dog or a fight dog. And they take some of the hardest cases, and it is amazing. The work they do is incredible, and they could use your help. If you have any unwanted vehicle, you get a great tax-deductible gift. On top of that, they accept cash, and you can also go to Amazon and set your supporting group up there to help Wounded Paw. It is truly incredible. Their motto is to save a paw is to save a life. Find out how you can get involved. Go to woundedpawproject.org, woundedpawproject.org, woundedpawproject.org. Chad Benson Show.
Experiencing separation anxiety? That's dumb. Check out Chad 24/7 at his website, ChadBensonShow.com, and on iTunes, free. The Chad Benson Show. Never feel lonely again.
LGBT Americans are protected
by the anti-discrimination laws of this country at their workplaces. They cannot be fired or otherwise discriminated against at work simply because they are lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender. This is a major civil rights opinion in the Supreme Court.
Yeah, it was a 6-3 opinion. Gorsuch and Roberts sided with the liberal side of it. So, it's Pride Month. LGBT community has to feel good. Hey, you can't discriminate against us based on our sexuality, what we identify as, what we don't. I mean, this is, I've always found it silly to discriminate against anybody. I mean, but that's, people out there feel this way. They do. And now, SCOTUS has spoken, and it wasn't 5-4 decision, as a lot of people think. A lot of these decisions in SCOTUS, we hear about some of the contentious ones that are out there, but the reality is most of them are landslides one way or another. But you had Gorsuch and Roberts siding with the liberals on this one.
This is a major civil rights opinion in the Supreme Court. It was written by Justice Neil Gorsuch and joined by Chief Justice John Roberts. Gorsuch appointed by President Trump. Chief Justice John Roberts, the leader of the conservative wing of the court. It is a 6-3 opinion.
I think Trump's pissed probably. Like, how do I get rid of that guy? How do I get rid of that guy? The Gorsuch guy. Who appointed him? You did, sir. Oh, what? Well, how do we get rid of him? It's not going to happen. Are you sure? Pretty sure it's not going to happen. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. You can text the program as well. Love hearing from all of you. Last week, they decided to get rid of Gone with the Wind. Now here it comes.
Gone with the Wind is returning to HBO Max with some historical context. African-American scholar Jacqueline Stewart will add an introduction to the film. She says people are turning to movies for racial re-education, and the introduction is an opportunity to think about what classic films can teach us. HBO Max quietly pulled the Oscar-winning 1939 movie last week, explaining in a statement that ethnic and racial prejudices depicted in the film were wrong then and are wrong today.
Yeah, so that will happen. They'll have a person introduce the movie. There might be some other stuff I've heard as well afterwards, but it's coming. And see, there's a perfect example of not getting rid of something. When we talk about the statues, let's erect other statues. Let's put up other monuments. Let's talk about the other side of what went down when it comes to the Confederate soldiers and the Confederate leaders and all of it. Give it a historical context, not one side or the other, but what it was. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show. Your Twitter, feel free to tweet at me. You can text the program. Check out the Instagram as well. We do it all, kids. We do it all. Got a new camera coming. We're going to do more starting here in the next couple days. So be prepared. Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
I'm scared. I've been scared every day. And I haven't gotten a lot of sleep because for the first time in my life in Capitol Hill, I hear gunshots every single night, and I've heard people screaming every single night outside. They're not protest screams. I've heard protest screams, but I've also heard screams of terror out there. And it's just, that's rattling enough, just hearing the screams for the first time and not knowing what's going on.
That guy's name is Brandon. He lives outside the Chaz, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. What is it? Well, they've taken it over, like 7 blocks in Seattle. They've basically ceded it to them. Here, take it. It's okay. We're going to get it back. Don't worry. It's insane. It's crazy. This is Carmen Best, who's not the best. She's the police chief of Seattle. And she's just, quite frankly, I feel like kind of useless.
There are a lot of differing objectives and agendas and people who have congregated into the area. One of our real challenges there is trying to determine who is a leader or an influencer that seems to change daily. I know that many of our city officials and others are trying to establish some sort of communication with someone who can give us some direction about what the intent is and how we might move forward.
Yeah, how do you move forward? Right? Like, I'm curious how you move forward. What are you going to do? You've given a portion of your city to protesters. You just basically said, here, take it. It's okay. You'll be fine. We'll figure it out later. We'll have a chat, right? Maybe over some vegan stuff. We could sit down, chat a little bit. Hopefully you'll figure out a way to let us have it. Can we please have it back? Is it possible to have it back? Can you please do that? That's embarrassing. That is embarrassing. Not everybody's thrilled by it. I have news for you. Not everybody is. Oh, it's totally the best. You should be thrilled. No, not everybody is. As you heard from Brandon right there, lives just outside. And he's like, yeah, I got news for you. This isn't everything it's cracked up to be. And they're not the peaceful people that you think. Now, I've talked to two reporters. One of them that's in there, inside, has been inside, on and off for a couple days. One that was in the beginning, and both of them have said the same thing. During the day, carnival-like atmosphere. Jenny Durkin, who's the mayor, said, it's kind of like a block party. Whatever. But they said at night it becomes something completely different.
The chance I've heard them myself saying kill the police, I've heard them say F the police, defund the police, cops are pigs, just violent chants. And so they're coming up on the cops, and then they shine like lasers in the strobe lights. To give the police credit, they did not budge their own line. They did not move forward. They did not move back. They just stayed still. And he's telling them over and over again, please stop. You're shining lasers. You're shining strobes. All of a sudden, someone chucks a glass bottle. It does not hit a police officer. It hit a guardsman in the back in the head. And it's like, at what point do you realize these people are not there to peacefully protest?
No, not everybody is. Not everybody is. And you've given them that opportunity to do what? To take over. To act like children. To push it off as it's no big deal. We'll get it back if we just ask them nice enough. And they don't even know who's running this. That's the other side of it, right? They have no idea. This person, that person, nobody really knows. Could be this person, could be that person. But don't worry. We'll get it back eventually, maybe, not sure.
I wish I had the answer to how long it might last. I can tell you that we want to move it forward as quickly and efficiently as possible. But my concern as a police chief, we don't want anyone there to be harmed. We don't want this to be something that devolves into a forced situation.
No, I don't think anybody wants to see that. I think what they would like to see is you go back in and you take some control over your city. But right now, you're just kind of, hoping it plays itself out and they blow off steam and eventually they run out of food. Well, they're building the garden, right? People continue to supply them food. They've got all kinds of demands, but that depends on who you ask to. People that can't stand Trump. I've got a few friends who cannot stand Trump. Have said, they're helping him make a good case to go in and do something. Now, I'm not for that. But what I am saying is you've allowed Seattle, you have allowed this over the last several months and years. You look at the crime rate in Seattle. Absolutely ridiculous. Crime is on the rise. Now, violent crime is there's not a lot of violent crime. There's a lot of assaults. There are other things that happen there. But you've allowed it to become this way. And now you've given up X amount of blocks to people who God only knows what they're doing and what they want. Because you ask them all, they're going to tell you something different. Enjoy. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us, text the program. SCOTUS has spoken.
In a 6-3 decision, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination based on sex, also applies to sexual orientation and gender identity. It means someone cannot be fired merely for being gay or transgender. An employer who does so, the majority opinion said, fires that person for traits or actions it would not have questioned in members of a different sex. Sex plays a necessary and undisguisable role in the decision, exactly what Title VII forbids. Justice Neil Gorsuch wrote that opinion. Justices Alito, Kavanaugh, and Thomas dissented.
Yeah. So you had two of the conservatives with the liberals siding in a 6-3 decision. Break it down for you, keep it simple, stupid. You can't discriminate. You can't fire somebody because they're gay, transgender, lesbian, bisexual. Now, if they're a horrible employee, you can let them go. I mean, that shouldn't protect you if you're a bad employee. But because that person's gay, transgender, et cetera, you can't fire them. That adds protections. Somebody tweeted at me earlier. What do you think of that? I think it's a good move. Again, you shouldn't be discriminating at all. You shouldn't. Now, will there be protections when it comes to religion based on certain things? Are there going to be lawsuits everywhere? There's lawsuits everywhere, all the time. SCOTUS also voted to allow qualified immunity to continue to stand when it comes to the police. Qualified immunity gives them a certain amount of protection that the job that they do, they put themselves and potentially other people in harm's way. And that if we were to be in a situation where we allowed people to sue the cops on a daily basis for everything they do, the city and the police officers would be beyond bankrupt, and you would have no city with a police force. You'd start to have private is what you'd have. Oh, I don't want that. Well, there you go then. You start to get to the point where you'd probably have some private because people are going to say, well, you know what? We're not going to do this. We're not going to get into the business of protecting. We'll farm it out to other people because if we do this, we're going to put ourselves at risk. And who would want to be a cop if every time you arrest somebody or you come into interaction with somebody, you put yourself in a position where and you're going to have to take out liability insurance. That would be through the roof. You talk to doctors, and they'll tell you some of the biggest money we pay expenditure on a month-to-month basis is our liability and protection for our insurance. So if you're making $70,000 a year as a cop and you got to spend $25,000 a year protecting yourself, at the end of the day, it just feels like, it would be that much. I don't know how much you're going to need. Right? That would be nuts. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Feel free to tweet at us. You can text the program as well. Rashad Brooks over the weekend shot by two officers in Atlanta after he got into a tussle. They pulled up on him. He was in the line at Wendy's. He had passed out. They suspected he was drinking. They gave him field sobriety. They went to arrest him, and away it went.
Where are you visiting?
My mother's grave site.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna talk to this officer here for a minute, and then we'll be good to go. Okay?
You have his ID?
Yeah.
Put your hands behind your back for me. Yeah, put your hands behind your back.
Hey, stop fighting! Stop fighting! Stop fighting! You're gonna get tased! You're gonna get tased!
Yeah. Escalated from there. There was more than a scuffle. He managed to get the taser away from one of the officers. He took off running. The officer were watching him, chasing him. He turned around with the taser, fired back. Officer fired 3 times. He died after surgery in the hospital. Police chief, officer, gone. Now what? Not the same as George Floyd, but questions are being asked. Did you need to chase him? Did there need to be this? These are the questions that people are asking when it comes to policing in this country today, of how do we go about policing where we can de-escalate. When's the right time to pursue? When's the right time to just say, let's catch him or her, put her in there because I don't want people to be upset, at a later date. He was obviously inebriated. You can't just go, oh, you're fine. The shooting, more protest, this on the heels of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and Black Lives Matter is letting their voice be heard again today in Atlanta. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show, Twitter. Tweet at us. I like saving you money. It's what I do. Try to entertain you for a little bit. I also try to make sure that you find great businesses that I've partnered with that could help you. Lightstream is one of those. You can get a credit card consolidation loan from Lightstream, and you can save thousands in interest. You can get a rate as low as 5.95% APR with auto pay and excellent credit. Lower than the average credit card. Average credit card is about 19%, so you're saving big. The rate is fixed. There's no fees. Application quick and easy, 100% online. You can even get your money in your account the same day you apply. It's great. Just for being my listeners, when you go to lightstream.com/Benson, lightstream.com/Benson, you can save even more and get a special interest rate discount. Subject to credit approval. Rate includes 0.50% auto pay discount. Terms and conditions apply. Offers subject to change without notice. Visit lightstream.com/Benson for more information. Chad Benson Show.
I, you, he, she, it. Lucy is a girl.
Point of personal privilege, please do not use gendered language to address everyone.
Shut up, boo.
Ain't nobody got time for this. This is the Chad Benson Show.
The spread of COVID-19 showing no signs of slowing across nearly half the country. Over the weekend, 22 states reporting alarming increases in their daily number of new cases. Florida experiencing a steady climb for nearly 2 weeks, with the last 2 days topping 2,000 new cases each, seeing as high as a 35% rise between Friday and Saturday. Florida's governor explaining the rise is due to increased testing in nursing homes, agricultural communities, and prisons.
We can't just describe this to increased testing. This is a real increase in case number.
Yeah, it's not just testing. There's lots of variables and factors that go into it. What's your hospital situation look like? Of the 80% your hospital's full, most hospitals need to operate in that 70 to 80% range, keep the lights on. So how many of those patients are there because of COVID? Also have to look at the percentage of testing. You tested 1,000 people today, and you have 120 people test positive, that's 12%. You test 10,000 tomorrow, and you have 600 people test positive, well, that's 6%. Those are little things. One thing we do know is it's not going anywhere. There doesn't seem to be the wave where it would die down and then come back, and that we may be looking at not only a long summer because of all of the other things that are going on with the protests, the economy, but this, and if we're going to get to the point where we have herd immunity, we're a long way from there.
Well, what we have to understand is that about 5% of the U.S. population has been infected to date with this virus, some locations slightly higher. This virus is not going to rest until it gets to about 60 or 70%. When I say rest, I mean just slow down. So one way or another, we're going to see a lot of additional cases out there. What the question we're asking ourselves right now, what does reopening do? What did the protests do? And I can give you examples where in some states like Arizona, the percentage of test positive are going up substantially, suggesting it's not just a testing artifact, as you pointed out. Hospitalizations are going up. That surely is an indication. But it's not universally across the country.
No, we've got some states going up, depending on what you're watching. It's 18 to 22. You've got about 10 states that are staying steady, and you've got, another 15 to 20 states going down. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays itself out. Not only do we have this, we've also got the protest. We have so many different things, from the reopening now to the protest, people getting out doing more because of the summer weather. Where does this lead to? And how do we combat it without having a second shutdown? Because a second shutdown, I think, would be so devastating for the economy that we could be looking at years and years, potentially a decade, to get ourselves back to a point where we're rocking and rolling again. And you will see a huge amount of bankruptcies, foreclosures, which that hasn't hit yet. There's a lag in those things. People are now just starting to realize that in July, that $600 extra a week from the feds probably isn't coming back, according to Larry Kudlow. On top of that, mortgages are coming due, forbearance is over, and your landlord's asking, okay, well, you've had 3 months, what's next? Because they've got bills to pay as well. 323-538-2423, at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Cancel culture is here. Doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. We'll touch on that as well as many other good things, kids. Hope you're doing well on this Monday. It's the Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
I had thought the show would survive.
Why was it canceled?
I'm not certain exactly why. It was obviously due to pressure to cancel the show based on the current environment. I had thought that we can both support the important protests and calls for change that are going on around this country and say that live PD and transparency amongst police officers and police departments can and should be a part of that. But in the end, the decision was made to end the show.
That's Dan Abrams, legal analyst for ABC, but also was the host of Live PD. And this is what's happening. Cancel culture is a very real thing. Cancel culture is not going anywhere. And we saw it with the Me Too movement. We've seen it with a lot of different things. And there's a thing called collateral damage. In war, collateral damage is one of those things where you bomb something and you're aiming for this, right? I'm just keeping it simple, stupid. You're aiming for this where there are people who are doing bad things, but there are also people there that are innocent. And that is collateral damage. Not everybody's innocent, but everybody's getting punished the same.
I think the word victim is pushing it a little bit. I feel that sometimes when you're horrible, there's a comeuppance. There's this thing happening right now on Twitter. Amber Riley from Glee started this thing called #Unmutiny. There's also something by Jared Hill called #Everyday. And then the Broadway actors that are black and brown created #WeSeeYou. All these people coming together saying enough is enough. So anyone that is wretched and crazy, there's a comeuppance. And I think sometimes a comeuppance is very healing and very cleansing. So I support it.
That's Yvette Nicole Brown, actress, Sierra Community, and a bunch of other things. And yeah, there's a comeuppance. But let's also have some, what ends up happening when we have things like this? You want to have a conversation. I always talk about, let's have a conversation. Let's listen to each other. Let's not take it personal, which is so hard to do because everybody takes everything personal. And then let's move forward in a way that we can start finding solutions to the problems that are out there. But let's not be insane, because what happens is once you start to get on the insane train, meaning everything is bad, everything needs to go, you start to peel off a lot of people who are just like, well, I was with you until there was this. Case in point, Meghan McCain making a point here. Pretty good.
Yeah, I think you got to take it by a case-by-case basis. There's a difference between obviously wanting the Confederate flag removed from NASCAR and then wanting Paw Patrol to be canceled. And I was actually one of these people that was disappointed that and Paw Patrol's a children's show that as dogs, different characters, one of the dogs is a police dog. I was one of those people that was really sad when Live PD was canceled, and they do a lot of good work with helping to find missing children.
Yeah. Paw Patrol is not Live PD, it's not cops, and it's not the Confederate flag. And Chase is on the case. That's the dog. It's the police. These are conversations that we should be having. We don't need overreaction. We need measured responses and conversations, because what we want is everybody collectively moving in the direction. Because you're not going to, look, it's not going to be utopia. You're not going to have perfection. Let's be 100% honest. You're not going to get any of those things, right? You're going to still have people that are a-holes. That's just the reality. People that are jerks. People that are going to bigots. You're going to have some people who are racist. Remember a bigot? Somebody who can't stand you for the color of your skin, but they have no power. Blame you for everything. Who you love, all of that stuff. Racist, someone with true power. Power to do something. And you're not going to fix you're not going to change everybody's hearts. You're not going to tug it. It's not going to happen. But what happens is when we get that, we talk about the exhausted majority. But once you start doing something to the point where you say everything is bad, all cops are bad, Chase on the case from Paw Patrol as bad as Derek Shaw, that's the kind of thing where people go, all right, well, that's a little silly. I was bummed Live PD was canceled. But that's where we are now. Everything must go. And this is what happens when we have an all or nothing thing. We never end up getting what we set out to try to do, which is talk about stuff, to move things forward, to have a better awareness, to start repositioning the path that we should be on. We don't get that. Instead, what we get is, okay, I'm out. Right? Like Legos is not going to promote the police set anymore. You're like, really? I mean, come on.
I think that it's very troubling that we're suddenly in a culture where all police officers have to suffer for the sins of a few. And I say that for every group. It's not just police officers. It's just so interesting to me that many on the left have criticized this sense of collective justice, right? That it has to be individual justice. You can't sort of impugn a community of people. And yet, when it comes to this, the left seems very willing, ready, and able to impugn all police officers.
Yeah, but that's the way it is. All white men are bad. That's not true. All police officers are bad. No. All CEOs are greedy, evil people. And again, not true. It should be an individual by individual basis. And there should be some point where we stand back and go, Paw Patrol doesn't need to be canceled. Not everything needs to be social justice. Live PD did do some good work. But it's tough in this day and age to get, because we've become all or nothing and we want immediate action. Tear down everything. Well, why not build some stuff up? Let's give all sides of the story and let's not get rid of it all. Nope, tear it all down. Cancel everything. Doesn't matter who you are. Right? Doesn't matter any of those things. Nope, let's get rid of it all. Get rid of every single thing that's out there. Let's just blanket say all of them are this. That's not a good thing. That's not win. In many cases, that's a serious loss, because what happens is when we should be having the conversation, we're so hyper-focused on things that don't matter. When we should be talking about real things. Last week, I talked about the Dave Chappelle special. It's like 30 minutes, like 25 minutes. There was some laughs, but there was a lot of serious stuff in there as well. And he talked about, man, we don't need celebrities. This is the streets talking. This is what it is. But Hollywood especially wants to run out and do what Hollywood does, which is we'll just cancel everything. It'll make everybody feel good.
They canceled Cops. I mean, you know why? Because those shows show cops as human beings, and you see some great, courageous action by these men and women in real time, and you see them jumping the fence, and they don't know if someone's going to shoot them on the other side, or they're wrestling with someone who's obviously on drugs. I mean, they hated the fact that the cops looked good, and that's why these shows were driven off by the cowards in Hollywood.
Geraldo. Remember, Geraldo once fought a Nazi. He got hit in the face by a chair. Remember that. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. And here's the other question about, like, even forgiveness. Like, is there room in this world for conversations about things like forgiveness or looking back on things and saying we cannot hold individuals to today's woke world and standards? We just can't. It was different. Right now, there's a big movement in Britain. Got to get rid of Churchill. Really?
To many, Winston Churchill stands as an emblem of British pride, with his force of personality and rousing speeches.
Men will still say, this was their finest hour.
In the Anglo-American world, Churchill is seen as a hero. He made the right call in the 1930s to warn against the dangers of the Nazis.
To galvanise the British nation, to inspire it to stand up against Hitler.
But others say he was racist, a staunch British imperialist.
Yeah, like all Brits were back in the day. Right? Like all Brits were. They wanted to expand, right? They were in India. They were all over the place. Hong Kong, you name it, they were there. He's very much British. It's exactly who he was.
Around other parts of the world, he is often seen in a very negative light. Churchill was quite explicit that he did believe that white people were superior, so that he disliked Chinese people. He described Indians as a beastly people with a beastly religion, by which he meant Hinduism. He often described Africans as being sort of childlike. He was certainly criticised during his own lifetime for having outdated, antiquated views on race.
Yeah, he did. But that's not how it ended, but that's how people see it, because like everything else, we want to hold everybody accountable. And then when people's views start to change, it becomes, well, it's too late now.
Churchill was not a politician who stuck rigidly forever to a certain worldview. Events did lead to him changing his mind. During the war, when everyone had to kind of get together to try and defeat the Nazis and the Japanese, he certainly did change his mind about white supremacy. And, you know, he's quoted on various occasions as saying that we can no longer see the white man as superior.
Yeah, he did change. Was it enough for people? No. We want to go back now. We want to change history. Get rid of him. That's what they're talking about now. Let's get rid of that. Washington Monument. Get rid of that. Let's get rid of it. It's time. It has to go. Everything has to go. It's all or nothing. We have to see them in today's world. Period. Case closed. Tom Cotton.
Just up the mall is the Washington Monument. Are we going to tear the Washington Monument down? Are we going to rename it the obelisk of wokeness? Up the hill is the Washington National Cathedral, where so many times we have gathered as a nation over the years to mourn our great leaders. Are we going to rename the Washington National Cathedral the Temple of Reason, as the Jacobins did to Notre Dame during the French Revolution? And what are we going to call this city? Can't call it Washington.
Tom Cotton there, right? Can't call it Washington. What do we call it now? Just DC, we're just going to call it, I don't even know what you call it.
The cancel culture ultimately is animated by a single idea, that America, at its core, is fundamentally irredeemable and wicked. I reject that claim fully, wholeheartedly.
I don't always agree with Tom Cotton, but I do agree with what he's saying there. I'm over cancel culture. I think there are people out there that are bad. They got bad ideas. They do bad things. That's one thing. But we're not irredeemable. We've made huge mistakes that are generational. And we need to do better. And we need to move forward. But the idea that we cannot have any redeeming qualities and that everything is bad and it's all or nothing doesn't move the conversation. It just frustrates people. And then they stop being involved in the conversation, and then we're right back here a year from now. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us. Boomer Naturals. Last week, got the edict from the big bosses here. Even though I work for myself, I do a local show, and the edict came in. Guess what, guys? Got to wear a mask inside the building. If you're talking to somebody else, that's what you got to do. So that's it. Thank God for Boomer Naturals. Got an amazing face covering mask, 30-day, 30-use face covering, 65% cotton, 35% polyester, high-quality, hypoallergenic with the 3 layers. You get nano silver technology. That's what it's treated with, as well as antibacterial and antiviral protection that lasts on the cloth for 30 days. When you get home, take it off, wash it in warm water and soap, let it air dry, wear it again tomorrow. It is that simple. They get extra large, medium, small, kids, the whole 9 yards. Order them. It's less than 30 cents a day. You will not be disappointed. The effectiveness is incredible. They're even going to give you a certification, show you how effective it is. Use code CHAD20. Save 20%, plus get free shipping on all orders over $50. That's code CHAD20 at boomernaturals.com. Boomernaturals.com. Use that code CHAD20 to save 20%. Free shipping over $50 when you order. Boomernaturals.com. Promo code CHAD20. Chad Benson Show.
Set Chad straight. Text the show, 323-538-2423. That's 323-538-CHAD. Someone has to do it. Might as well be you. The Chad Benson Show.
Police say he resisted arrest, which turned into a struggle, leading to him grabbing an officer's taser. Brooks flees and appears to point the stun gun at the officers while he runs away. Investigators say Officer Garrett Rolfe then fired 3 shots at Brooks, who died at the hospital after surgery. An autopsy reveals Brooks was shot twice in the back and lists the manner of death as homicide.
Yep. His family spoke today. More unrest, people angry, want answers, want people arrested. We'll see what takes place in the coming days. This again on the heels of George Floyd. Lots of video from this one. It's not quite the same. He did resist arrest, but did he deserve what he got? I don't think he did. Sorry. I don't think he did. And this is where the conversation about policing will come in. I texted a couple buddies of mine who are cops, and they said to me, no, I wouldn't have shot. We would have pursued. But if you have all your information, at some point in time, you try to find the person. How big of a threat was he? Got to know everything. But shooting him as he's running away, and all he has is a taser that's not going to hit you, I think there's some questions to be asked, and we'll see what happens going forward. But so far, police chief out in Atlanta, cop gone. Lots of questions that will have to be asked in the coming days. And will there be arrest? 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Feel free to tweet at me. Producer Phil, real quick question. What will nature do?
Nature will mess you up.
Mess you up.
Trent Waddell and his dog Loki are recovering after a Monday morning walk on his Wesley Chapel farm turned vicious.
Gator grabbed the dog by the front arm and dragged him into the water there.
Yeah, that's what they will do. If you guys saw, you go to my Instagram, you go to Twitter, I had Big Norman out with me the other day. He's well over 6+ feet, but he's a giant lizard. Could he take down a dog? Absolutely no problem. But he's a big baby, and he's terrified of the puppy. So that's kind of hilarious. But this guy, hey, gator comes, next thing you know, it's on.
According to Twaddell, in the blink of an eye, a nearly 13-foot gator had its grips on his 6-year-old rescue pup. Twaddell, a former Army Staff Sergeant, quickly reacted.
I grabbed the dog's collar to try to pull him back, and I ended up in a tug-of-war match with this gator. Gator was not letting go, so I let go of the collar, and I got about knee-deep into the water and started pounding on the gator's head until he eventually let go.
Yeah, they will fight. Gators not like sharks. They taste that. They're like it's food, as far as they're concerned. Crocodiles, gators, they'll eat 'em.
Twiddell got away with minor scratches, but Loki had to undergo emergency surgery.
We're hoping that he can regain full use of his paws.
With the help of Florida Fish and Wildlife, he set a trap for the gator on his property.
The trapper did not have any bait, so I grabbed one of my roosters, and we used him as bait for the trap. We haven't had any luck yet.
Isn't that funny? Save my dog. We'll kill the rooster. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Feel free to tweet at me. It's just doing what's natural. Sounds horrible, right? Oh, my God. That's it. It's here. It sees it. It does it. Good rest of your day. Be kind to each other. We'll do it again tomorrow. As always, Night Night Jack.
This is the Chad Benson Show.